What's up, guys? Trevor Hunter here at Dirt Bike Tests. We're here at Washougal MX Park in Washington, my first time here. And today we just rode the 2025 Kawasaki KX250. This bike is largely changed from the previous generation. Now shares the same chassis and all the updates that last year's 450 got, as well as a lot of motor updates for the new year. So Kawasaki went all in on revamping this 250F, and the previous generation, 2024 and before, was actually one of our favorite 250Fs. Very fun bike to ride, but is also at times a hard bike to ride. So a lot of our more experienced level riders really like that bike, but then you get to the lesser experienced riders or vet guys, and they kind of struggled with it, and for a few reasons. And so today we're going to go over how this bike performed and what it does better than the 2024 bike. Starting with the motor, this motor it's a lot different than the old bike. The old bike was a screamer, a lot of top end and over rev, but anything before that, it really didn't make a whole lot of power. And if you came out of the corner in the wrong gear or whatnot, the engine recovery took a little bit too long. Like, it took a long time to build the RPMs into where it's making power. And this new bike makes a lot of usable power way down low, almost as much as or almost like the Yamaha 250F. So Kawasaki really filled in the holes in the bottom to mid-range, and it's a more complete motor, I feel like. I feel the top end and the over rev isn't quite as strong as before, so if you're trying to ride it like the old bike, you're not going to be as satisfied, or it doesn't work as good. But for 99% of the people, this motor is a lot better motor. It's a lot easier to ride. It's a lot easier to keep in the meat of the power. Yeah, so overall, Kawasaki, I feel like, made a huge improvement with the motor. It's still a fun bike to ride, so you can still rev it pretty good, but like I said, you don't have to rev it to ride it fast. And yeah, it was really good, especially here on today. Track was pretty slick in some spots, and lighting up the rear wheel wasn't the answer. So being able to use the torque of the motor and short shift it a little bit really helped in conditions like this. And I think on a lot of tracks and for a lot of riders, that's a huge improvement for Kawasaki. Move on to suspension. The front fork in particular on the last generation bike was really stiff. Even pro level guys on moto really struggled to get any comfort out of that fork. And I feel like Kawasaki did a lot better job with the settings, with just more balanced bike overall. They went from KYB components last year, which I'm normally a fan of, to the 49mm Showa fork and a Showa shock out back to match the KX250. And overall, the bike was set up really well. I didn't make a single clicker change all day. There's a lot of comfort. I felt like a lot more comfort in both ends of the bike, really, but mainly out of the fork. There's a lot more comfort in the fork, and a lot of the big jumps here and some of the downhills, I cased a few of them or over jumped a few of them. And even if you kind of over jumped or cased it, the bottoming was very controlled. But I also felt like I had a lot of comfort throughout the whole day. Like I said, I didn't make any clicker changes. Felt like I had pretty good traction for the most part. The MX34 tires aren't my favorite, and then coming to this track, it's a little slick at times, especially after they water it. So at times I was chasing that, but that's more of a conditions thing than a bike thing. But overall, I was really happy with the whole suspension setup. Like I said, a lot more balanced and a lot of comfort out of it. And one of our other riders, Tyler Belknap, he's here today as well. And he was struggling a little bit with some comfort, so he ended up taking out 3 clicks of rebound in the fork, sped it up 3 clicks to get some more comfort out of that. And then he also took out about a quarter turn of high-speed compression out of the shock. And for him, that helped get a little more comfort and more movement out of the shock. I rode that, but I felt like it was a little too soft and a little too much movement for myself. So I went back to standard and was pretty happy with that. Move on to the chassis. The bike always felt pretty light, but it never cornered all that well. I felt like it had a very vague front end feel in the corners. at least in the stock setup. So this bike corners really, really well. There wasn't a whole lot of ruts today, but the few corners that did have ruts, you feel like you really laid in there and trust the bike and just pop in and pop out and wouldn't want to stand up. Felt like a good front end traction. I could feel where the front end was going, and it was very predictable, which was really good. And then even in the flat corners, I feel like you lean the bike over and you could find some traction and be able to maneuver the bike really well. Wasn't skipping out or jumping around or anything like that. It was, like I said, very confident swing bike overall. And yeah, I think Kawasaki hit the nail on the head with this 2025 250F. The motor greatly improved for a vast majority of the riders. Suspension is greatly improved for a vast majority of the riders. And the chassis, like I said, the old chassis was really good, but I feel like this one is, it has a lot of the same good characteristics of the old chassis, but now brings in that cornering and precision that it lacked before, and just makes it a really complete overall bike. So pretty happy with today. We're gonna come back here tomorrow to ride the KX250X off-road and go out in the trails where we really belong. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you more at dirtbiketest.com.